Hello there again. Welcome to another episode of Abundant Wellness. I've been having a little technical difficulty, so I just want to ensure that I am truly being being on video live, right now before I continue this talk. Okay. Well, I'd like to welcome you all to another episode. Welcome again, once again, to Abundant Wellness Podcast. So glad to have you join me here on your Saturday afternoon. I mean, you can be anywhere. But in case you don't get all of it, it is recorded. You are able to go back and listen to it again on here on my personal Facebook, but also on my YouTube. I'd like to put these on my YouTube as well. So, well, here we are. This is the last month of the year. We are wrapping up 2025, and our last two, second of the last of my episodes of 2024. Look forward to 2025. Look forward to 2026 to open up that new year with you. Perhaps maybe that'll be the year for better health and new start as far as our health and our well-being, mental health, physical health. And I'd love to be able to enter into that new year with you, into that journey. But you know what? We're not here yet. We're not there yet. And there's no time like the present to begin our health journey, or even at least starting to think about it. Sometimes it is a process, but I am here for you. I'm glad to be here for you. And I'm even more excited that you take the time to join me today. So welcome again. And without any further ado, let's go ahead and dive right in. I had a little bit of technical difficulties there in the beginning, so appreciate your patience with me, and let's dive right into it. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. Okay, my screen should be your screen right now, or your screen, my screen. So again, welcome to the Abundant Wellness Podcast. Abundant Wellness meets every second and fourth Saturday of the month at 3 p.m. Central Standard Time. I am actually here in Texas, South Texas, very close, practically bordering the Mexican country, and it's really nice here. I don't have to worry about the snow while I'm here. My name is Joanne McDermott. I'm a board certified functional nutrition and lifestyle practitioner, and I am also a mental health coach. I have to throw out my disclaimer here for you. As a functional nutritionist, I help people to find the underlying root causes of their health challenges. What's really the reason behind why they're tired all the time, fatigued all the time, having acid reflux all the time. I'm like a private investigator looking for that underlying root cause, and then using diet and lifestyle to help reverse that or manage that, help you to feel better and get better once again. And a lot of times our illness is not only physical symptoms, but a lot of times there's some mental and emotional stuff that's going on there, maybe some anger, frustration, trauma that we've experienced that has not been addressed yet. So as a functional nutritionist, I'm looking at the physical, but I'm also looking at the mental, emotional, and the spiritual as well. But while I'm doing that, I have to let you know that the information provided here is intended to promote overall well-being and is not a substitute for personalized professional care. So if you are seeing a doctor, please continue to see your doctor. But hopefully you find one that you like, that you're comfortable with, that listens to you and allows you to be a part of your healthcare. You are supposed to be part of that team because it's your body. Viewers are encouraged to be empowered by learning how the body functions, allowing them to take an active role in their own health goals and your own health decisions. Nobody knows how you feel more than you. Nobody knows your experiences just as you do. And so it makes sense for you to be a part of that. And I'm here to help you to understand how your body works and how it's supposed to be working, or how it can work better, so that you can just be a part of that, health team and making the best decisions for you. So today we are going to be talking about air. And the air that we actually breathe in is oxygen. Well, it's not all oxygen, but we're going to be getting into that. What is this air that we're breathing in? The air, we also call them gases in chemistry, that we breathe in, it's mostly nitrogen. It comes in and it goes back out pretty much the same way, because that nitrogen, our body needs nitrogen, but we get it more from our foods that we eat. We don't get it from the air, per se. But there's a lot of nitrogen in the air. Most of what we use when we inhale is the oxygen. That's 21% of the air that we breathe in. And then a very, very, very small percentage of carbon dioxide we actually are inhaling in as well. It's very small. It's less than 1%. And that that carbon dioxide that we breathe in is very important. Even though carbon dioxide is really, it's a waste product. It's our body doesn't really, it doesn't use it. Our cells don't really use it, but it is an important part of being breathed in, because when there's carbon dioxide, when our body is sensing that carbon dioxide within us, it tells the body, oh, you know what? There's a need for oxygen here. So for every little bit of carbon dioxide that comes in, it stimulates the giving off, the providing of oxygen to our body. So our red blood cells, those carry oxygen, to the different parts of our bodies, and they will release more oxygen to the tissues and the muscles, within our body, when they're noticing and seeing that, oh wait, there's some carbon dioxide here. So that carbon dioxide just stimulates more of that oxygen being given and sent off into our body. So it is actually very important and a necessary part of the gas that we need to inhale, although it is a very small percent. So yes, most of the gas that we breathe in is oxygen. Oxygen is very important to our bodies. It's very much needed. Without that oxygen, we would not be alive. And I'll explain a little bit further as I go on why that oxygen is so helpful. What is it actually doing for our bodies? Now, the nose is really, when we breathe, when we are inhaling, sometimes we inhale through our nose, sometimes we inhale through our mouth, but do you know it's really the nose is really what was designed for inhaling, for actually breathing. If we look in Genesis chapter 2, verse 7, it says, "And the Lord formed man of the dust of the earth and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and man became a living soul." So before man was alive, before he became a living soul, God had to breathe oxygen into him. And if you noticed, he breathed that life through his nostrils, okay, through his nose. So the nostrils, the nose, that's really what was designed for the breathing, for us breathing. By breathing through the nose, it allows proper gas exchange. So, the exchange of carbon dioxide, oxygen to carbon dioxide ratio, and allows, a better capture of that oxygen. So there's a ratio between the oxygen and carbon dioxide. They're kind of just switching places. And in order to get that right amount of oxygen, there has to be that right amount of carbon dioxide that is going out. And we're able to get that balance, that perfect balance of the oxygen to carbon dioxide ratio when we breathe through our nose. Also, when we breathe through our nose, it helps us to relax. I don't know if any of you out there has ever experienced hyperventilating. And when you're hyperventilating, you're breathing through your mouth. You're just breathing so fast like that. And it's not helping you to relax, right? You don't end up feeling better. You just continue to hyperventilate. And sometimes what they do is they tell you to take a bag, they put it over your nose, and you're breathing in and out. And I think it's maybe containing the air a little bit more, kind of like how, it's more controlled how much air is going in and out through your nose. So by putting the bag over your mouth, it's controlling it more, and then eventually it helps you to relax and slow down your breathing. Well, you don't even need to put a bag over your mouth. You can just close your mouth and breathe through your nose. So if the nose is really designed for breathing, then what's the purpose of the mouth, right? Because we do breathe through the mouth sometimes. Well, the mouth really is designed for talking, like I'm talking to you right now. In our mouth, we have our tongues in there that's helping me to create this sound and enunciate my words. The mouth is also for eating. Well, you certainly can't eat through your nose. There's no other part of your body where you can eat. Well, some people might have like a tube feeding, their stomach, but I mean, that's not natural. That's not how it was designed. There's no like biting and chewing the food. Besides, in our mouth, we have certain enzymes that are released through our saliva to help break down the food. So for sure, the mouth is for talking, it's for eating. And then maybe as a backup, then we can use the mouth for breathing. So I'm sure many of you out there has had a respiratory infection, and you just had a lot of congestion in your head, and your nose gets really stuffy, and you can't even breathe through your nose at all because it's just so stuffy. There's just so much inflammation going on in there. And thank the Lord that there is another way for you to breathe, which is through your mouth. And as a result of your nose being stuffed up, you're not feeling like you're suffocating. So breathing through the mouth, that really is supposed to be just a backup until you get better. But in reality, we were designed to breathe through our nose, because when we are constantly breathing through our mouth, we have some people out there that are mouth breathers. Whether their nose is stuffy or not, they're always breathing through their mouths. And when we are constantly breathing through our mouth, it'll change the shape of our face. And sometimes it could even cause us to have sleep apnea. Let me show you a picture of that. So the first picture of the young man there, the before and after, that is when he was breathing through his mouth all the time. And so you could see that he is kind of losing a chin there, kind of like his chin is almost lined up with his neck, right? So they say that the face is a little bit elongated. His bite is a little bit different. It's almost like he has an overbite, that the top lip is kind of protruding out a little bit more. And so the face just really, the shape of the head, shape of the face just completely changes when a person is breathing through their mouth all the time. Looking at the picture of the young lady, you can see again the nose breather. Well, let's look at the mouth breather, and you could see like her chin is kind of down, almost like down to her neck, kind of puffed out a little bit, but it's not defined. And maybe the cheek's a little bit fat, and you can see how like the upper lip is almost protruding out. Well, it does protrude out more than the bottom lip. It's not nicely lined up. So your face does actually change. I don't know, maybe you might be able to look at somebody right now and recognize just from the shape of their face that, you know what, they're a nose breather there. So yeah, we weren't, they're a mouth breather there rather. We weren't designed to always be breathing through our mouth all the time. Breathing through our mouth all the time can also cause us to experience sleep apnea. So what's sleep apnea? That is when you are sleeping in the middle of the night, and then just out of nowhere, you stop breathing. And because your body absolutely needs oxygen it can't go long without breathing, maybe a couple of seconds, you will end up like waking up. And well, sometimes, I guess sometimes you'll just like wake up, but sometimes you don't wake up, but your sleep may not be as deep. But nevertheless, in sleep apnea, what happens is you stop breathing. You go back to breathing again. Sometimes, you might be very quiet and then you come up with this, really loud like that, or for people that snore. And it's because your body is just like grasping for air. So just looking at the picture right here, looking under the normal side, this is a person where their mouth is closed and they are breathing through their nose, inhaling and exhaling as they sleep. And you can see that where the blue arrow is, the passageway is opened up a little bit more. So the chances of them stop breathing is really not going to happen because that passageway is opened up. But when you look to the other picture of the person that has a sleep apnea, you can see that their mouth is open. So they're breathing through their nose, but a lot of breathing coming in through the mouth as well. And when the mouth is open, you can see the passageway of where the air would travel, down the back of down the throat, eventually to their lungs. You can see that it's cut off, it's blocked off. And so one of the solutions to sleep apnea, they have those different kits and those different machines, but a simple method too would be to put a tape over your mouth to force you to be breathing through your nose. There's actually special tape that is sold that you can buy to put over your mouth to help you to nose breathe during the night instead of mouth breathing. Now, it might sound kind of scary to some of you. What if it makes me stop breathing? Honestly, if you could not breathe, your body would wake you up. And because your body is designed to survive, it's designed to heal itself, and you would wake up. But what people might do sometimes to just feel a little bit more comfortable is they would practice putting on that tape over their mouth during the day for a little bit and just kind of get the feel of it, get a little bit more comfortable with it until they finally do it at night. So yeah, that's interesting. So let's talk about this oxygen, how it goes into our body and what's happening, and that exchange of gas, carbon dioxide, oxygen for carbon dioxide. So when we inhale, the oxygen goes through our nose. So let's look at that picture there all the way to the left. Looks like a young boy. He is inhaling that air. It goes in through the nose, and then it goes down to the windpipe. So the windpipe is kind of lined up with the esophagus. The esophagus is at the back, and the windpipe is in the front. If you touch your throat right now and you feel like these ridges, that's actually your windpipe. That's where the oxygen is going. And behind that is the esophagus, and that's where the food goes that we eat. So, it all kind of starts the same place. We take in the food, we take in the oxygen, the air through our mouths, and then there's those two tubes that split up. So the air goes into the nose, into the mouth, and eventually down the windpipe, right? And then the windpipe branches off into the lungs. And then there are different branches inside the lungs, and they break down into smaller branches and smaller branches until you get to what is called the alveoli. And then that alveoli, you can see the picture all the way over to the right. The alveoli now allows for that exchange of oxygen to the blood, the red blood cells, and then the red blood cells will also take in the carbon dioxide. So the red blood cells carry the oxygen, throughout the body with a protein or through a protein called hemoglobin, but it's being carried around by those red blood cells. And those red blood cells, they make their way to the alveoli. So let's look at that middle picture now. So we're going to look at that cycle, and the arrow is going counterclockwise. So you have the oxygen going to the red blood cells. Yay, the red blood cells have oxygen right now. And then it goes and it carries it to the different organs of the body, the liver, the stomach, the pancreas, because every organ in your body needs that oxygen. The organs are composed of tissues, which are composed of cells, and every cell in your body needs that oxygen in order to survive, in order to function. So now that those organs have gotten all of that oxygen, now it doesn't have, those red blood cells don't have that oxygen, so it heads right back up, right back to where the lungs are, and gives it the carbon dioxide that the cells had given off. Lungs takes that, and then we exhale it, and then it goes back and collects some more oxygen. And this cycle happens over and over and over again. Now, why do we need this oxygen? Why is it so important to us? Because your body uses oxygen along with glucose. So those are two partners together. Oxygen and glucose come together and they work inside the cell and create or produce what is called ATP, which is the fuel. It's the energy that your body uses or your body needs for things to work, for your different body parts, different organs to work, for you to be able to have the strength. See the picture of that gentleman there? He has that 40-pound weight in his hand and he is lifting it up. The only reason why he's able to lift that up is because his body took in oxygen along with glucose, did that little cycle, and produce, and at the end of that was able to produce energy that gave him the strength to be able to lift any kind of activity or function or process that any part of your body or any part of your body's organ is doing. It has that ability, that strength to be able to do that because of the energy that it made as a result of the oxygen and the glucose coming together. Some of that, so the oxygen is coming from, because of that air that we are breathing in, that we are inhaling. Did you know that 20% of all the oxygen that you breathe in is used by your brain? So think about all the different body parts. We have the brain, the stomach, the liver, the pancreas, the ovaries, the fallopian tube. There's all these different body organs that serve their purposes in making us this healthy living organism, and they all are using oxygen, right? But the brain is using most of that oxygen. And the reason why that is, I would have to say that the brain is working harder than any other part of your body. Not to deny the other parts of your body, they are also very important. I mean, we could not live without a stomach. We could not live without, our liver, our kidneys. We can't live without any of those. But anyway, the brain is using more of the oxygen than any other part of your body. Why do you think that might be? Because, it is your brain that is signaling, for all the other parts of your body to work. It's the one that's sending out the signals so that when your stomach is supposed to be in action, it starts to go in action. And when your liver is supposed to be doing certain things, it's sending messages, to that as well. So the brain is just, it's constantly on go. At least your stomach might get a chance to rest in between, but the brain is constantly go, go, go. It never stops. So, it makes sense that it uses a lot of that oxygen. And because it's using so much oxygen all the time, it is more susceptible to experiencing what we call oxidative stress. So oxidative stress, let me explain that a little bit through the next picture. It is when you have, so you might have you might have a normal cell, and then that cell ends up getting attacked by something called free radicals. So what is a free radical? Let's look at the picture over at the right. A free radical is a it's an electron that is, well, I'm sorry, it's an atom that has lost one of its electrons. And so it kind of becomes radical. And so what it does is it goes around and it tries to steal other electrons. It tries to steal the electrons that belong to the other atoms. It just goes around causing trouble. And as it does that, so now it's attacking these other cells, trying to take that electron from that other cell, it starts to cause that cell to be damaged now. And when there's a lot of these free radicals that are floating around the place like that, that is what we call oxidative stress. Now, why do these free radicals form in the first place? They're just troublemakers. Why does this electron, get lost? Now, free radicals, they're good in the sense that if there is any foreign pathogen, that is floating around, in your body, any substance that your body does not recognize and sees it as harmful, it's going to go after it and it's going to attack it. The whole immune process system does that, and one of the areas of the immune system is these free radicals going out and knocking out and destroying these cells. So, in that sense, we like those free radicals to be around. Sometimes the free radicals can also result, it's just a byproduct of all this metabolism, that's happening within the cell. And so, they're just there. But fortunately, there's something called antioxidants that help to tame these free radicals. What the antioxidant does is it gives an electron to that atom, to that free radical, gives it the electron. So now they got what they wanted. Now they don't have to go around and try to steal, electrons, from other cells. It just calms it right down, and it makes it not so aggressive, toward the other cells as well. So our body naturally produces antioxidants, but sometimes we're a little bit low in the production of those antioxidants. So the best thing to do in that case is to eat those foods that are high in antioxidants. And they usually are these foods that have like a purple color to them. Blueberries, very high in antioxidants. Your purple cabbage, and also your purple onion. So these types of foods are also defined as being foods that are good brain foods. Why are they good brain foods? Because they help to balance out or tame out those free radicals, right? Which is, too much of that is what we call the oxidative stress. And the brain, remember, the brain experiences that oxidative stress more than anything because the brain is just using up so much oxygen. It's using it up a lot. So there's a lot of metabolism going on there. So there's a lot of production of that free radical byproduct. Now, I have spoken to you or spoken on this podcast earlier about, the parasympathetic nervous system and the sympathetic nervous system. And when I would mention the sympathetic nervous system, that's also what we call our fight or flight. That is when we feel threatened and we feel like we need to either get ready to run or get ready to fight. And it causes us to also breathe shallow and breathe fast. And this is, it's good that we go into that sympathetic nervous system time because it does really prepare us to deal with the threat at hand. However, We do not want to be in that state for too long. We do not want to be in that state too often because it does lead to shallow and fast breathing. When we are breathing shallow and we're breathing fast, we are not getting enough oxygen, in our system to be flowing through our blood and getting to our cells. So it's good for an emergency, but it's not supposed to be long term, not supposed to be all the time. Instead, we want to be in the parasympathetic state, which is also known as the rest and digest. When we are in that state, we are breathing slow and deep. And that really encourages more oxygen to be coming into our bodies because we need the oxygen to survive. We need that oxygen to produce that energy so that we don't feel tired, so that we have energy, and so that our organs can function the way they need to and function fully. So let's take a moment to just learn the breathing exercise. This is a tool and activity that a person does sometimes, or that is suggested to be done when a person is experiencing some anxiety. We call it the breathing exercises. So what you would do is you could either sit or you can stand, and you just want to be, you could even lie down too, and you just want to be pretty much relaxed. And then you're going to inhale very deep as you can. And once you've inhaled until you cannot take in any more air, then you are going to hold that breath for a number of seconds. After those seconds expire, then you would slowly exhale. So actually, there's one of those activities is specifically called box breathing. So it means that you're inhaling for a certain number of seconds, let's say 5 seconds. You're holding your breath also for 5 seconds, and then you're exhaling for 5 seconds. So that's why it's the box, because you're doing everything for the same amount of seconds. And notice in this picture here, this person is breathing in through their nose. Well, the arrow is showing that they're breathing in through their nose, holding their breath, and exhaling through their nose. Because remember, what's the part of our bodies that's truly designed for breathing and is going to give us the best oxygen to carbon dioxide ratio so that we get the optimal amount of oxygen? It's when we breathe through our nose. So that's a nice little activity that you can do when you're starting to feel anxiety, feeling anxious, feeling nervous. Maybe that anxiety may have creeped up on you out of nowhere, or maybe you really are nervous about a situation that's happening right now. Just trying this breathing exercise helps a lot of people, and you can give it a shot. I do want to point out though that when you are doing this breathing exercise, you want to make sure that you are breathing through the bottom part of your abdominal area. You want to ensure that you're using your belly to inhale and exhale and not your chest. So when you inhale, your belly should actually be sticking out, or it should protrude a little bit. Looking at the picture at the bottom, the young man in the green shirt, so that is showing the right type of breathing. So as he inhales, you can see a little pouch in his belly there. Okay, it's coming out, it's sticking out a little bit. You can see the arrow showing that it's coming out. And if you look at his chest though, his chest is at a certain level, it's not moving at all. So that's an inhaling. Now as he exhale, the only change is his belly. So you can see the arrows pointing that the belly has gone in now as he has exhaled, but looking at the chest, it's still at the same level. So the chest is not moving, it's the belly that should be moving. So looking over at the with the red shirt, sometimes people breathe and the upper part of their body is going in and going out. Sometimes you might even see the shoulders go up. I don't know if you noticed that within yourself. So I want you to understand and see that it's supposed to be the belly that's expanding and getting back smaller and not your chest, or it's supposed to be your belly that's moving. Your chest should not be moving. It should remain the same. And so that is also going to help to ensure that we are getting all of that oxygen that we need to be getting. Do you remember Lamaze class? Before the time came to give birth, a lot of women, they go to Lamaze class. And in that Lamaze class, what's one of the things that they teach you? They teach you breathing. Why are they teaching you that? Because there's something about getting in that oxygen and getting it into our system and getting it in the right way that helps us to relax, helps us to be able to focus on what we're doing, be able to do it better, even to have the energy to do it, and maybe those muscles too, they're not getting so tense, but it's helping us to relax so that things can happen the way that they are supposed to. Any of you that has a really good coach out there, I'm talking about like an exercise trainer or an instructor at a gym, the really good trainers are going to be telling you over and over again, breathe, breathe, as you're doing your exercises and you're pushing and you're trying to get the last two in. They're going to say, breathe, breathe, remember to breathe. And the reason why that is because it allows you to get oxygen inside of your body. That oxygen, goes to your lungs, and your lungs eventually bring it to your bloodstream, right? And within your bloodstream are the red blood cells. Those red blood cells are going to get that oxygen. It's going to grab it. It's going to continue to flow through your veins, and it's going to reach all the different parts of your body, your different organs, and even your muscles. And then your muscles, do you remember what they do with the oxygen? They combine oxygen with the glucose, and they do that activity inside there, and they make energy that we call ATP. It makes that energy. And now you have the energy to actually lift that weight. So breathing gives you the strength to be able to do those exercises, and especially the last few reps that you're doing where you're just really getting very tired and you feel like you can't do it anymore. Your instructor, your trainer is going to tell you, breathe, and you'll be amazed. Just that breath, that little breath, you will feel a little bit more energy, a little bit more oomph to be able to push your way through the end. Oxygen is also very good for just learning, for healing. And so there is this machine, or this tube here. It's becoming very popular. It's called the HBOT, which stands for the hyperbaric oxygen therapy. So what happens is when a person is sick with cancer, let's say something like cancer, or they have wounds that are just not healing, they will have the patient go through this machine. And what it does is it allows the person to be completely enclosed in an area that has 100% oxygen. Because remember at the beginning of this presentation, I was telling you that the air that we breathe in, most of it is nitrogen. Comes in, comes out. It's like almost 80%, and it's just 20% of the oxygen that we breathe in that is in the air, that comes from the air that we breathe in. Only 20% is oxygen. I mean, and it's enough, but when a person is really sick, they figure, okay, if we can get even more oxygen in their body at a given time, that can help to enhance the healing, for the wound. As far as cancer, they say that the cancer cells do not like oxygen at all. They love sugar though, but they don't like oxygen. So it helps to kill off those bad cancer cells. So it's said. But as far as wound healing, again, that oxygen is giving the cells energy so it can do all of its body functions. Part of that body function is just creating new cells, and it's building, it's repairing, it's getting rid of the waste, inside, and or getting rid of those old cells. So it's just enhancing the body to do what it needs to do to be its healthiest self. So they're inside that tube. They're completely surrounded by 100% oxygen, in the air that is around them. But it also creates a certain amount of pressure so that that oxygen is able to diffuse inside of the person's bloodstream, and so that the oxygen can get to the red blood cells, even quicker, faster, sooner, or more at a time, and enhance that healing, encourage that healing to take place. So it's being used more and more, and people are finding very good results from it. It's nice. It's a more natural way of treatment. There's no side effects to it, and it's just oxygen. It's the oxygen that we already use, but getting it at a higher quantity and at a faster rate. If we do not have oxygen going through our body, well, I should say if we don't have enough, we are going to feel depleted. We are going to feel tired. We're going to feel fatigued, just drained, because, like I said before, our body uses the oxygen along with the glucose to produce energy. So if there's not enough of it there, the cells are not going to be able to do that metabolism of creating ATP. We are not going to have this energy. And, a lot of people that suffer from fatigue or fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue, or just feeling tired all the time. I mean, there's different reasons why we feel tired all the time, but it could be maybe you just need to take in more breaths. Maybe you need to inhale a little bit more. Maybe just doing more exercise. When we exercise, we tend to start breathing faster. As our heart is pumping harder and faster, it makes us breathe more deeply and more frequently, and so that's why they say too that the exercise gives you that energy. Now, what happens if we do not get the proper oxygen flow to our bodies? Well, in the previous picture I showed that, well, you're going to feel, tired, but if your certain organs of your body don't get the oxygen supply or very reduced supply and they're not getting enough, it can really cause damage to the different organs in your body. So for example, that gentleman is grabbing his heart because he's experiencing a heart attack. What happens during a heart attack? Looking at that picture all the way to the left there, that is a magnified view of a blood vessel, and that blood vessel is having an accumulation of fat, cholesterol, and it is narrowing the space where the red blood cells would flow. Now, if that space gets more and more narrowed, sometimes it completely gets blocked off, but even when it gets narrow, it is reducing the flow of those red blood cells. So they are not traveling at the rate that they should, which means that your heart or other organs are not going to get what? They're not going to get the oxygen, right? Because the red blood cells, they got the oxygen inside of them and they're carrying oxygen to the different parts of the body. So now when you have a muscle or you have a certain part of your body that's not getting oxygen, so for example, the heart will start to die. The muscles within the heart will start to die because your body cannot function. Those organs cannot work without having that oxygen, that supply of oxygen, going through them all the time. We constantly need oxygen. Looking at the picture to the right here, this is an example of the flow of oxygen being compromised, again, through the blood vessel because maybe there's some kind of plaque buildup, or there's different reasons why. Sometimes there's a blockage. Now you have the blood not flowing, the red blood cells not going to that part of the body, so there's no oxygen getting to it, and that area will start to die as well. And so when a person experiences a stroke, sometimes a part of their brain, a part of the tissue there just, dies. Same thing happens with the muscle, in the heart. And though there are people that survive it, some don't, but there are people that survive it, but a lot of times they have some symptoms that never go away. They're not able to walk anymore. They're not able to speak anymore, or when it comes to losing that blood supply or oxygen supply to their brain, they're not able to think as well, maybe can't do word recall, can't speak anymore, can't walk anymore. When it comes to the individual that lost the blood supply to their heart, if they survive it, well, they might not be able to exert themselves to the extent that they did before. They might have trouble going up and down stairs now, and they have to take it easy. They have to slow down. So, oxygen is just so important to our bodies, all of our organs, and we really cannot live without it. Now, there are times when people do get into some kind of accident or something happens and they stop breathing, and the thing to do is give immediate, CPR. Of course, you have to be trained on how to do that. And when a person is receiving that CPR, what is happening is the person is breathing into their mouth, right? Because they are breathing oxygen. So the person is not breathing at all. They might not have a pulse. There's no flow of blood, which means the different organs is not getting the oxygen. So we got to get oxygen to those different body parts. So they breathe into, they're breathing air into their body, which eventually will go to their lungs. Now, I have to say that when we exhale, yes, it's mostly carbon dioxide that is coming out, but there's still a little bit of oxygen that is there. So this is still very helpful and has actually saved many people's lives. So they're breathing oxygen, that little bit of oxygen in there. They do 2 breaths, and then they go and they're doing what they call the compressions. They're making that heart beat, because it's not beating right now. So they're making it beat. That beating of the heart is allowing the blood to flow to the different parts of the body, to the different organs, so that it can carry oxygen to the brain, to the heart, to the liver, to wherever, all the different parts of the body. But I guess mainly the brain and the heart's the most important one in this scenario right now, so that this person does not end up going too much time without getting oxygen to their brain, because we could only go so long without oxygen to the brain. In fact, people with, most experts state that permanent brain damage can begin after 4 minutes, and death can occur within 5 to 10 minutes. So it's really important to act very fast. And it's something that can be done until help can come along the way, because even if that ambulance might be a minute or 2 late, it might be too late. There could be permanent brain damage. So by doing the CPR, helps to buy some time and increase the chances of there not being any kind of brain damage. So kudos to those individuals that have learned how to do CPR. It makes a difference. But my point that I want to express here is how important oxygen is to our bodies. It is what gives us strength. It is what makes our bodies work, the different organs in our body to work. And so how important it is to ensure that we are breathing and we're breathing well and we're taking proper breaths. We're breathing through our nose and not through our mouths. And when we breathe and when we inhale, we're inhaling through our lower abdomen or our belly and not our chest. So I want to encourage you guys to breathe and breathe well. Thank you again for joining me today. And I want to remind you once again that we meet the second and fourth Saturday of the month, 3 p.m. Central Standard Time. I will see you in 2 weeks. We will continue our conversation about oxygen and air. We'll go a little bit more into the quality of air. We talked about why air is important, why oxygen is important, but we also have to be thinking about the quality of that oxygen that you're breathing in, because sometimes it's pure and sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's full of toxins, and hopefully most of the time is not. And that also makes a difference. So stay tuned. Thank you for joining me today, and I will see you next time. If you have any questions or you want to reach out to me because you have questions or you wish to have a personal consultation with me, please feel free to call me, to send me a text, or you can even email me at the address up there. Well, actually, that's not my email address, but that's my website. But if you go to my website, you could also send me a message there and access my email. So thank you again. I wish you all a beautiful, wonderful rest of the day. Take care. Bye-bye.